West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast. West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm one half the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, and with me as ever is my partner in crime, Santokie Nagilendran. Santokie, how you doing?
Mash, we're back. We're back again a week later. This time the second test in Delhi, India against West Indies. West Indies took absolute licks across 2.5 days in the first test. Second test, I don't know if we can expect anything different, but regardless, as we all say on CCP, we'll rally. But Mash, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for this second test?
Do you know what? In hindsight, West Indies losing in 2.5 days was the best thing they could have done, because yesterday I nearly forgot that there was a second test to come. I'd had so many days off. I'd forgotten that we were even playing India. But we're back again. 5 o'clock alarm is set. We're good to go. I wouldn't say I'm excited, Santokie, but the pseudo disappointment from the first test has now been and gone, and I'm ready to see. And I think the question I should ask you, because this is the realistic question to ask: what is an acceptable defeat in this second test? Because we're going to lose. The first test wasn't expected. It wasn't acceptable, but it was expected. The nature of it. What is an acceptable and expected defeat in the second test?
So I think expected would be an innings and an X amount of runs. I think if we're going to say an acceptable defeat, anything that's less than an innings, like if India win by 6-7 wickets, or if that sort of margin, you could say obviously it's an improvement on the first test. For me, I mean, I'm already saying like India are going to win the second test, right? I don't even think, as much as West Indies have had the power in recent years of drawing miracles, I don't even think they can pull off this miracle with our bowling attack so depleted. So for me, again, it's just looking at individual performances in terms of quote unquote victories. So the key one for me, Mash, is can anyone get a 50, man? Like someone being able to get a 50, I'll salute and turn off the TV. I won't need to watch the rest of the match.
Do you know what though? I actually think, because we're not going to take 20 wickets. I'd like us to try and take 10. Okay, let's try and put down these 3 markers. Someone to score a 50. West Indies to try and take in 10 Indian wickets without them declaring. And India to have to bat twice. I'm not saying those things. I'm not saying those things.
Man said India with that 4th innings target of 7 runs.
Yeah, listen, even if it's only 3 runs, just something. They have to bat twice. No matter what happens, they have to bat twice. I'll take that as a moral victory if they have to bat twice. I think that's the best target we can set them. Yeah. And of the joke is, Santokie, the hardest thing of those targets is actually, it's not the 10 wickets, it's not making them bat twice, it's someone scoring 50. That's how bad the batting is. That if you said to me right now, who do you think's our best chance of scoring a 50? My honest answer has to be nobody. Yeah. Not because I don't rate the guys, I can't, there is literally no one we can bank on to score a 50. Who would you bet the money on, Santokie, if you had free money to bet? I can't think of anyone.
There's no one. I mean, if you're going to go on form, then Afinez would be the most likely because of his 38 he got in the last test. But there's no one that you can confidently. For all I know, Afinez gets a duck, right? First innings that he comes out. So there's no one who I can confidently say can sort of put up that performance. And I think Mash, again, we see with West Indies, whenever we get defeated, I've seen podcast articles about, should West Indies be even playing Test cricket? Should they go to India again? And there does seem to be, again, whenever West Indies lose, a sort of massive theme about whether West Indies should play Test cricket. How have they gone this far? But even now, we're seeing Dan Sammy in the press conference before this test talk about how West Indies didn't capitalise on the glory days of the 80s and 90s financially. Brian Lava's obviously said, even though we don't have the facilities and the resources, the players need to show more passion. Like they need to shout on the pitch, which is one. I mean, I know it's Lava, yeah, so people will give him a pass, but for me that's a mad thing to say. Like show more passion on the pitch will suddenly allow you to get past all the financial differences between India and West Indies and somehow be able to compete by showing that passion. I just think, Mash, for you, let's go to a wider point before we get into sort of the second test team and everything. Where do you stand on this? Does the first test performance just basically reinforce your idea that there should be two tiers of cricket? What do you sort of make of it overall?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked the question, because every time I bring up two tiers of cricket, I do, and I always read the comments. I don't these days. I don't really care what anybody says in the comments. If they don't like what we say, they don't like what we say. If they do, they do, right? But I always will read them. And I think what I've noticed is whenever I mention two tiers of cricket, people misunderstand what I'm saying here. I am not saying that West Indies should play in a second tier of cricket and never come back to a first tier again. To be clear, what I'm saying is the ICC needs to implement two divisions of cricket with promotion and relegation, and with funding, a test match fund that allows the teams that initially go into that second tier to be able to fund actually playing test cricket. I'm not just saying chuck West Indies down there for the sake of chucking them down there because they're no good. Like, it has to be a proper system, right? So I think some people need to just bear that in mind, that when I say that, I'm not saying it without any long-term plan in place. Obviously, the ICC will never do that, but that's what I would want to see. So and the thing is, Santokie, and some uncles were sending me messages last week and this week saying when West Indies were on top of the world in the 80s, nobody was asking England and the teams were beaten to play second tier cricket. And every time I read that stuff, I'm like, the world's changed though. This is 2025. What are you talking about? Like, this in 1980 in football, teams like Hamburg were on top of the world. Like Celtic were once on top of the world. What are you talking about? That's not relevant to anything right now. We can clearly see with the advent of like obscene capitalism within the game, right, that West Indies are part of the also-rans. And I can't speak for Santokie, and Santokie will give his own words in a minute, but I do not get joy from seeing West Indies play these games. It's not about wins or losses. It's just so uncompetitive that it's not even fun to watch. It feels like I'm in detention when I'm watching these type of games. And no amount of freak victories versus Australia for the first time in some 30 years, and a freak victory versus Pakistan the first time in 40. All those things aren't turning the corner. They're freak victories. And what sums it up, Santokie, because I think we said this at the back end of 2024. At the start of 2024, we beat Australia in a test match, first time in 30 years. By the end of 2024, Bangladesh had come to the Caribbean and beaten West Indies. So when people say to me, but we've done this, they always conveniently forget that Bangladesh came to the Caribbean and beat us by the end of the year. So I never buy these arguments that things were better at some point in the last 10 years. No, it's been a steady decline, to the point where we've started this episode going, boy, I don't know if anyone can score a 50. Like,
so for me, I haven't had any joy from this India test series. Like, for me, like you said, it's almost just a chore. Like, for the love of West Indies, I'll watch it, but you're really there's nothing really that you can, as a West Indian fan, and I find it hard to believe anyone would disagree. What have we been able to take positive from that first test? There's literally been nothing, right? And I agree. I think the ideal concept of two tiers, where there's promotion and relegation, and more importantly, funding, right? So the ICC gives whatever $100K US to, let's say, the Division 2 teams, Ireland, Zimbabwe, West Indies, to basically cover the hosting and all the organizational, operational aspects. And they don't have to worry about getting a TV deal because it's funded. Players are reimbursed. Whether that happens, that might seem a bit far-fetched, whether the ICC really cares enough about that caliber of test sides to fund it. But that's essentially what needs to happen. And then West Indies, if you think about it, Mash, in the last 3 years, 2 years? Since 2023, our only series win has been against Zimbabwe, right? So essentially, what we're saying is that those are the type of sides we can win against or compete against. Then after 2-3 years of competing against Ireland, Zimbabwe, Afghanistan, hopefully that will allow players to develop, gain confidence, learn to bat against lower quality opposition, which is more evenly matched, and then be able to go up to Division 1 better equipped. Because at the moment, we're like rabbits in the headlights when we're going to these countries. We don't know what to do. We can't, and it's not the players' fault. Like, I know, obviously, Lara said we need to show more passion, but like what Sammy was saying, the facility and resources just aren't there, Mash. You can't put in. It's hard for players to go to India and somehow be able to compete. No preparation, no facilities to prepare them in the Caribbean, no experience of only a handful of Red Bull domestic games earlier this year. It's always it's a recipe for disaster, right? So I think this test series more than anything this year supports the idea of there being 2 tiers of test cricket, and you can see it. Like I've seen English podcasts, Indian podcasts, articles talk about how boring the series has been, and even Indian fans have messaged us saying like we'd like to see a bit more of competition between these two sides. Like we want to. It's not fun if you're an Indian fan watching this because there's no competition, right? That's why we watch sports. So again, it does support that notion of 2 tiers test cricket. Whether that will happen, it's hard to know. And it is interesting watching that Sammy press conference before the test match. He did say he spun it, Sammy, the master of PR. He said he looked at the schedule, he saw we were playing Australia, away to India, away to New Zealand, and he said, you can ask any cricket in person, those are the hardest 3 assignments in world cricket. So he looked at it and said, look, I was expecting the L's, I'm moving on to 2026. So Sammy's already predicted the 3 L's in New Zealand. Yeah, he's got the moral victory over all of us.
Man said he watched CCP, saw us predict 0 and 8, and said, you know what, let me just get ahead of it from now and let people know that 0 and 8 is coming. We got to give him that Ruben Amorim 3-year contract and just say it's a long-term plan. But listen, right? ESPN, check this out. This is funny. So ESPN, this is their headline for the game tomorrow. It says, India look for clean sweep in cool Delhi as West Indies continue search for solutions. Then the subheading says, India are unlikely to make any changes to their playing 11, but West Indies might be tempted to bring in the left-arm pace of Jadea Seals.
No, Jadea Seals.
Big ESPN, That man disrespected us so much they just made up a name. Throw it in the article, Jadea Seals,
Jadea Seals, That's crazy. But Mash, let's use that as a basis for. So let's talk about team selection. Obviously, I think it's pretty unanimous between us that there's no real changes West Indies can make that can dramatically improve our fortunes against India. Obviously, we named a 15-man squad. So you've got Kevlon Anderson, Tevin Imlach, Jadea Blades, and Anderson Phillip, who didn't play in the first test. Do you see any changes happening for that second test?
Johan Lane definitely out. Did I see earlier in the week? Let me just check. I swear I read earlier in the week that this pitch might be a bit more batting friendly. Yeah. Not that means anything for West Indies, but let me just see. I mean, I'm sure people are going to get in the comments. Here we go. Delhi is likely to be a typical Indian track, good for batting on the first 2 and a bit days before bringing the spinners into the game. The drop in temperature should make it difficult for the pitch to break up suddenly. The week in the lead up to the test has brought some rain, but the test is not likely to be affected. So, based on that, and assuming that they think, your classic kind of Indian wicket where the spinners dominate from day 3, 4, 5 onwards, right? You assume then that we stick with Warrican and Pierre, which means the only logical change you can make in the bowling is Johan Lane. So if we're assuming that Johan Lane is out, you then have to make a decision as to, does Johan Lane get replaced by Anderson Phillip, who inexplicably was left out, or does he get replaced by Jadea Seals, as ESPN are saying, right? I refuse to believe that Sammy would call up Jadea. Let me call him his real name. I refuse to believe that Sammy would call up Jadea Blades and say, right, you just landed 3 days ago, in you come for the second test. But then when we spoke about the first test, I said to you, there's no way Johan Lane plays, right? So as far as I'm concerned, anything could happen. When I wake up at 5 o'clock and I see Jadea Blades is in the team, I'm not even going to be surprised, but it should be Anderson Phillip. Just because Anderson Phillip, at least he's quick. Like, at least he can do something different to just bowl in your standard line and length. Like, at least he's got a quicker ball in him that might rush a batter at some point in time, right? So let's go Phillip for Lane. And then the only question mark after that, Santokie, is do you see them dropping a batter? But yes, everyone sucked, but I don't. Like, Afanase was a top scorer, so he stays. Chase is a captain, he stays. Hope is a wicket keeper, he stays. Graves was the second best batter. No, actually, probably the best batter, 25 and 32. He stays. and you're not going to drop the 2 openers. So I don't see how there's any other change in the team.
No, I don't. I think Johan Lane's the only one. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he went with unchanged 11 at the same time. But yeah, I think realistically, if there's going to be a change, Johan Lane in. It's interesting because obviously Sammy's a big fan of Jadea Blades. Gave him an unexpected call up in the white ball size last year. So we could see Blades get a debut, in India. But I would like to see Anderson Phillips just because I think he offers more, as you said. He's got more experience, slightly more pace. He works well, could work well in tandem with the new ball with Jaden Seals. And I just think that offers our bowling attack slightly more venom, and maybe we might be able to do something with that extra pace. But realistically, Mash, if it's 5 a.m. and I wake up and I see India batting, I'll just go back to bed, man.
Yeah, I'm going. Yeah, if I see India have won the toss and they've elected to bat, I'll watch the first half an hour, and then I might just sack it off until the last hour of play.
And the thing is, we're going to get people, it's inevitable. People will cuss in the comments saying, look, you guys are too negative. You guys are taking the mick out of West Indies cricket. But it is what it is, man. It's just a reflection of sort of where we are. I don't see, to be honest, as a West Indies fan, this is probably, in terms of my optimism about a side performance, this year has probably been the lowest it's been in terms of West Indies, just because I don't see any great alternative options. I don't see any youth man coming through. I just see like an endless cycle of mediocre performances that, like you said, a steady decline, getting worse and worse. And it sounds like, for all the talk from Sammy and Lara, Mash, no one's really given, and even this committee that met together after 27 all out, other than them saying Lara and Viv are going to play golf in India to get sponsorship, no one's really come up with an actual detailed plan as to how we're going to fix this problem. It's all just things like, show more passion, and we do need to get more sponsorship from somewhere, and then but what actually is being taken, what steps are being taken to reverse this decline? Nothing really. And so in a year's time, when we're recording a pod after West Indies' latest test series, we'll probably be having the same conversations and talking about even worse performances.
Yeah, and this is the thing, because the only real tangible change that was made that can fix on-pitch performances in the short term was they said, we're going to get a full-time sports psychologist, and we're going to get a full-time batting consultant. But with respect, one full-time batting consultant can't fix a region-wide epidemic in terms of inability to just score runs, right? So
just one man with a bat just hopping island to island. When you think about it, it's mad that there was a big announcement, one batting mentor for the whole region,
one internationally renowned man to go from nation to nation, island to island, showing man how to bat. One man, man, this man must be Jesus, because I don't know. Imagine if it's Jesus, though. Imagine if Jesus chose his time to come back to earth as West Indies batting consultant. Because that's the only person I can think of that can do this,
Yeah, I actually, you know what? I got sucked in at the press conference because I was actually like, okay, cool, they've got an actual batting consultant, a sports psychologist. But then I realized afterwards they said it's singular, so one sports psychologist talking to every man in the region.
Every man in the region signing in on Zoom,
That sports psychologist working on minimum wage, fam, for the amount of work.
Listen, as far as I'm concerned, unless they're gonna just write off this generation and focus on like the academy lot coming through, etc., I still maintain one of the only options they've got is to identify. And I don't know where the money comes from, but I can't think of any other option they've got, which is to identify 5 or 6 batters in the region and just get them out of the region regularly. So those things like taking them off to the Super Kings Academy earlier on in the year for people like Akeem Orgeese and that lot. They might just have to just do those type of things regularly throughout the year and say, the only way you're going to develop is if we take you out. Like, if we know the infrastructure is so terrible in the Caribbean, still trying to develop players within that infrastructure won't do anything, right? So you have to remove them. You have to remove them from the trauma and take them somewhere else. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. So we said we'll keep it, it's a quick test preview. We'll be doing daily lives throughout the second test. So we'll wrap it up there. Comment below, how do you think West Indies are going to perform against India? I think we sort of know the trend of where it's going to go. But as always, me and Mash will be valuing, 5 a.m. UK time, I think midnight in Eastern Caribbean, 11 p.m. in Jamaica. So the region will be valuing, as always, behind the maroon. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, X, Blue Sky, Patreon.com/CaribCricket below. You can see the ticker below. Any little donation will help us keep the project going, Caribbean Cricket Podcast. And we're also on Facebook as well. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching in the world. That's been Mash. I've been Santokie. And we'll see you tomorrow to review Day's 1 play of the second test, India versus West Indies. Take care, everyone.
See you all soon.
West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast. West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast.